let's talk about how I made $17,400 my first month as a growth operator, info product operator, growth specialist, IPGA, GO, whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah, so let's dive into that. Um, if you guys have been following me for a while, have worked with a lot of different guys in info product space. Anything from really managing sales teams to closing on different offers to helping out with VSLs, helping out with marketing, helping out with emails, even though those really aren't my realms of expertise. Really just overall helping big guys with a following that sell either coaching, consulting, or some type of course make more money. So without any further introduction, let's hop into it, how it all started. Thought it'd be a good little start to kind of kick this channel off. That way everyone kind of knows where I started. So, backstory. Prior to being in any type of online business, I did do some real estate. Made a few hundred grand there. So I wasn't coming into this whole business space as a brand new beginner, and I had a baseline level experience. Would I say like, hey, I can compete with people that are making millions of dollars online? No, but I did come in with a base level experience of talking to other individuals at a higher level than I am, right? So that was really helpful. But went from doing real estate, sat down one day. I had probably, I don't know, at this point, I was probably 22. I think I might have had like 30, 40, 50, 60 grand in the bank, somewhere along those lines. Still living at home. Um, and really just felt lost. Like I had decent money for a 22-year-old, at least where I came from, which is like 45 minutes an hour outside of Tampa in a small suburban neighborhood. And I needed to figure out why even though had more money than I ever had more money than my parents have ever had at one point in their lifetime, why I still felt poor and why I wasn't happy kind of where I was, or really just didn't really know what the next steps were after real estate. I knew I wasn't going to be in there forever. I didn't love it enough to really do it for more than really just to get my first bag, right? So at this point, I am living at home. I am really just not around any make money online. Like I've never really been around anybody my age that's really made as much money as I have at that point. Obviously, being in real estate, you're working with older people, but quit real estate, and it was like a really hard thing to do because that was my first mentor. Shout out TJ Holman, but quit doing real estate, and I was like, I want to do something online. I want to be able to travel. I want the freedom of that accent. I want to make $10,000 a month. I had already done that. Um, and that whole scenario, and I figure that's where everyone starts, is they want the freedom to travel and live this crazy lifestyle and go on yachts and make money from a laptop. So I pretty much started the same way as everyone else. I knew I had to do something online, watched a few Iman Gadzhi videos, and the next thing you knew, I was going to start a marketing agency. Well, I learned very quickly I didn't fucking know anything about marketing. So that didn't go very well. And at this point, I had been doing this. I've been trying for like 3 or 4 months and couldn't get any clients. And then I found this guy, Luke Alexander, on YouTube. This is where everything switched for me. Luke Alexander, for some reason, really stuck out to me because at the time, he was like one of the only guys teaching remote sales, already did real estate, already had some level of sales experience, or at least what I thought was sales experience. Um, Ended up buying Closer Cartel. This was back, I think it was like $3,000 or $4,000 at that point. Started closing right away. Um, this is something that most people won't say, but fake it till you make it, right? So most people in the online sales experience or online sales space start setting and then close after they've been in the absolute trenches for 6, 7 months, whatever, and have made in those 7 months maybe six to fucking $15,000. Usually it's not a lot for most setters, but I went straight to closing. I was ignorant enough to think I was good enough to close when I really, really wasn't. My sales experience was not. Like, I just wasn't good at sales. That's what it came down to. Started closing right away. Learned a word track. Started doing okay. Probably about like month 2, month 3, month 4 inside of Closer Cartel. I was really good friends with Kishan, if you guys know Kishan, at this point, because we both lived in Tampa. So I was grinding with him and learning kind of like the ropes. Started making some decent money by like month 4. I hit my first 10K month. It's like 9,300. It wasn't really 10K. Started going through the ropes, doing that whole thing, and then I just started to not make nearly as much money. That offer started to go down. Fast forward probably about 6 or 7 months into my closing journey, I somehow, some way managed to convince someone to let me manage a sales team of a very, very, very big influencer in the trading space. Shout out Casper SMC. He is honestly the GOAT, one of my favorite people I've ever met in this space. But Casper had just launched his offer in November of, maybe it was August of 2023. And at the time, there was another growth operator or agency or whatever the fuck you want to call it, who had partnered with Casper to launch, and they did. And that guy that I'll leave unnamed, mainly because I don't fucking like him, did Casper dirty, but he had no idea anything about sales, managing sales teams, sales reps, anything like that. Some way, somehow, I got in contact with him, and he hired me to run Casper's sales team. Now, mind you, I am 6 months in the game at this point. I can barely close, and somehow this guy wants me to manage an entire sales team of an offer that on launch did 500K, and he gave me 5% of that. So this is second month. I meet Casper, get on the call. I spew a bunch of bullshit. Not really bullshit, just like made myself sound better than I was. There's nothing wrong with doing that if you feel like you can, if you can fulfill and where they were at in the business. They didn't really need that much, to be honest. But they were paying me way more than I was actually worth by far. Had ended up getting 5% of every dollar that was collected by the sales team. That was my deal. That was my first deal. Now, mind you, August, month 1, Casper launches. He does 500K. Month 2, he partners with me to run the sales aspects, sales assets, closers, setters. I at least had a baseline of, I knew what a good closer looked like, sounded like, and I knew the numbers, and I knew what a good sales rep was. So that was my baseline. That was at least good for me. And I got on Casper's team really quick. Saw he had 4 or 5 closers, and they were just absolutely diabolically terrible. Like, the worst closer I've ever seen. Besides one dude. One dude was pretty good. But nonetheless, get into this predicament where I'm now going from like closing, and at that point, like, my income had gone way down. The offer that I was closing on was just not doing well whatsoever. To now managing entire sales team, helping build CRMs, helping build VSLs. Like, I was basically on the phone all the time with one of my good friends, Sanjay, now, trying to figure out how to do everything, because I had no idea what I was doing on a lot of the back end shit. But had 5%, and that month ended up doing like $330,000 or $350,000 cash collected, which was like $16,000 or $17,000 to me. At this point, I'm also like a coach inside Closer Cartel, so a little bit of money came from that. But literally went from like making $2,000 or $3,000 to making $17,000 in that first month. I moved out of my mom's house, got a skyrise apartment, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. But nonetheless, and keep in mind, I don't just have 17,000. I came from real estate. I had, 30, 40, 50. I don't remember specifically how much I had, but that's what I did. I was like, okay, all these guys online, they all live in the sky rises. They all make money online. This is what I do now. I am now a fucking online badass killer. I made almost $20,000. I think I'm the shit. I'm riding high in the mountaintops. Everyone inside of Closer Cartel has no idea how I got in this position. I don't know how I got in this position. My best friend Kishan, who's been doing sales for 3 years, has no idea how the fuck I got in this position. And now, for some reason, I start going to Miami a lot. I start becoming friends with like all the fucking people down there. Obviously, working for Luke, that was a huge opportunity for me. Honestly, one of the best people I've ever met, along with Sanjay, Kishan, Luke, and Logan, Luke's brother. All of them completely changed my life, and honestly, would take a bullet for any one of those guys. But nonetheless, I'm in this weird predicament. I'm thinking I'm on the verge of making $250 million a month because I'm like, okay, this is possible. I'm going to scale this thing to the fucking moon and I'm going to be rich as fuck. Like I'm telling my mom, I'm like, I'm going to hire you $5,000 a month. I'm about to change all of our fucking lives. All this crazy stuff. I started working with them in November, and by January 15th, I was fired. If that puts any perspective into how fucking dumb and blind I was to all of this. And the pure reason for me getting fired wasn't necessarily what I was doing wrong. It goes back to the original growth operator guy that was working with Casper. We had a bad month we went from like 500 to like 370 to like 300 in November to like 250 in December to like 300 in January. So not terrible numbers, right? It sounds really good for most offers, but Casper specifically, he's someone that's like going to do millions of dollars a month. He's an absolute fucking business psycho. But the offer's going down, and the growth operator guy kind of pins the whole thing on me, just because I was like I was the lowest hanging fruit as far as like cash collected goes. Again, was I worth $20,000 at the time? Like, no, realistically not. So totally understand that decision. Casper ended up partnering with me on another offer like 3 months later. Long story there that I won't dive too deep into, but absolutely love Casper. Dude gives unlimited chances to people. I fucking love him. But yeah, long story short, I started living this $20,000 lifestyle, fucking skyrise. I'm never eating in. I'm Ubering black. I'm fucking taking my girl out for $400 or $500 dinners, all this type of shit. And then my income just goes from 17,000 to zero overnight, literally overnight. And the reason for that is because in those 3 months, I did something terribly wrong, which was I didn't get better at the skill. I thought I was good enough. I thought, what I was doing was a direct correlation of how much money I was making. And it was just literally an experience gap there. Because, I was like, oh, I'll go get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more of these guys, and I'll be making fucking killing. Little did I know, if you're going to charge someone $20,000 or $30,000 a month, you better be fucking good at what you do. So that was a reality check for me in that time period. And to date, Casper is still my biggest client I've ever had as far as payout. But yeah, long story short, that is kind of like where this whole online thing kind of fucking started for me. And, this is probably, I'm about 7 or 8 months in at this point. And I at this point, I've grown exponentially as far as like who knows me in this whole info product space, the rooms I'm in. I mean, in less than 7 months, I went from buying a Closer Cartel, a sales training program, to being on yachts on New Year's in Miami with the guy that I bought his fucking mentorship. So I was living on an absolute fucking mountaintop, right? I'm living in a mountaintop. I'm on yachts. I'm in Miami. I'm in sky rises. Like, life is just changing very, very, very quickly. for me specifically. So, yeah, that's kind of where this whole thing kind of went. Shout out again to Casper. Shout out to his whole team.